All right, for those of you that are struggling with the assignment for today, I'm going to give you a quick run through of how to start it off and what you're going to do for the rest of it so that you guys can tackle it on your own. If you notice, I gave you here on the top kind of a general setup for all the problems that are what they're gonna look like in the front. Okay, so this is your general setup. This is the example following your general setup, and in all actuality, guys, all of these questions here in the front are gonna look like your example. Okay, if you turn your paper to the back side, you're gonna find out that you have another setup, another example, and that's because now it changes slightly and you're gonna do the rest of them like the example that you see here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the first one. Okay, on the first one, it's asking how many molecules of H2O are in 6.98 times 10 to the 4th moles of water. Okay, if I look at my general setup, it says that in the first box, I'm gonna put my given moles. Okay, so my given is the number that's given in the question. So this is my given moles. And you're gonna go ahead and write all that information in this part of the box. Okay, so it's gonna look just like this. All right, so if I keep on looking at my general setup, it says use Avogadro's number. So I'm gonna use Avogadro's number on the top. The reason it goes on the top is because remember, Avogadro's number is always gonna have one of those 4 words that we talked about. It's either going to have the word atoms, molecules, formula units, or ions. Okay, so if it has that word behind it, it can't go here because then that wouldn't match with the 1 mole, okay, or with the mole. So therefore, I'm going to place 1 mole on the bottom and then Avogadro's number on the top. All right, so I haven't put anything here. For the work that you're showing for me today, you have to have the unit and what the substance is. So 2 things behind that number, unit and substance. So if you notice, I just have a number, so I have to have a unit and the substance. And for here, I have the unit, but not the substance. Okay, so we're using water, we're talking about water, so we know that the substance is going to be H2O. And as far as the unit for this one, remember it's got to be one of these 4 words, but we're going to look at the question to see which word to use. So it's molecules, therefore I'm going to write molecules here. Okay, once I do that, I can cancel the like terms. So just the unit and the substance, moles of H2O, because it's the same as moles of H2O, those 2 will cancel. Okay, remember the little rhyme that I taught you? If it's side by side, you multiply. If it's top and bottom, you divide. So you're going to multiply 6.98 times 10 to the 4th by 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. That answer divided by 1. Although anything divided by 1 is the same, so we won't need to do that. We just take the answer from the multiplication of these 2. All right, and to enter it into the calculator, we're going to start with 6.98. So 6.98. And remember that we're not going to use times 10. We're going to use this button that's a double E. So that's going to replace the times 10. And it shows up as an E. Okay, to the power of 4. Okay, then I'm going to multiply. So times, and then 6.02, 6.02. And it's going to be exponent times 10 to the, so I'm going to press this button. Gives me an E of 23. And hit enter. Okay, so my answer comes out to 4.20196 E28. And that's not how we want to write it on our paper, because this is just the way the computer or the calculator language behind it. So we have to write it how we would write it. Round your answer to the nearest hundredth. That means 2 numbers after the decimal point. And then instead of the E, put times 10 and then put the power of 28. Okay, my answer would look like that, but we're not going to be happy with just writing a naked number with nothing behind it. So since we canceled moles of water, we're going to put the unit and substance that's at the top end of that dimensional analysis. So we're going to write molecules of H2O at the end of this. So your final answer would look just like this. Okay, as you're doing the rest of the assignment, I want you to know that this setup is going to be exactly the same for all these questions in the front. So that means that you're going to have your dimensional analysis like you see here. All of these questions in the front will have Avogadro's number here and 1 mole here. You just need to worry about what the unit and substance is behind Avogadro's number and what the substance is behind the 1 mole. But everything will have 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd over 1. This one will have the same thing, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd over 1. This one will have the same thing. So all you're doing for all of these is multiplying with Avogadro's number. Make sure you show all your work, that you have all your units and your substances, and that when you give the answer, that you never put an E, and that you always put the unit and the substance. Okay, for the problems on the back, notice that now rather than having Avogadro's number on top, it's on the bottom. So we're going to be dividing. You're going to set it up exactly the way you see it here. Okay, so it tells me here that I'm going to put my given particles on this first box. And remember, the bottom box is always empty. So my given particles are 3.21 times 10 to the 25th atoms. And it's going to go in this first box. Okay, so it's going to look something like this, atoms of Li. All right, and then the next thing, I'm going to put 1 mole on the top, but I have to put the substance that we're using. So in this case, we're using lithium, so it's going to be 1 mole of lithium. And on the bottom, it's also going to have Avogadro's number, and I'm not going to use atoms like I did over here. Well, actually, I am. Since I used atoms and it's mentioned as atoms, I'm also going to use atoms. But when I get to this problem, for example, I'll be using molecules. When I get to this example, I'll be using the word ions. Okay, so it switches according to the question. All right, so again, I'm putting 1 mole of lithium on top, and then I'm going to put Avogadro's number, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd atoms of lithium. All right, this is a setup, and we're going to cancel like terms. So atoms of lithium matches atoms of lithium. Those get canceled, but when I come up with the answer, I know that I'm going to write what's left over, which is moles of lithium. So after my numerical answer here, I'm going to write moles of lithium as my unit. So now I'm going to enter it into the calculator. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and type in 3.21. And that 3.21, instead of times 10, exponent 25. And this time around, I'm not going to multiply like I did in the back, or in the front, I'm sorry, but because this is on the bottom, I'm going to divide by Avogadro's number. So divided by 6.02, and then double E for exponent, 23. Enter. Okay, and that's going to give me an answer of 53.3223. And I'm going to round that to a nearest hundredth. That means that I'm going to round it to 2 numbers after the decimal point. So that means it would be 53.32. Okay, so again, our answer is 53.32. And we already had the units, moles of lithium, which is right here. And as you're doing the rest of these problems, remember what I said, follow along with the setup and the example, and they're going to look pretty much exactly the same. The only thing that you're putting into it is the starting or the given particles, the starting or given particles right here. Don't forget that you're going to put the substance, like in this case it would be NO2, and over here would be the units, which is molecules of NO2. And so you're just filling up these little gaps, but if you notice, it's like a pattern. They're all pretty much calculated the same. So if we look at the front, what we talked about earlier, same thing, but now you're going to notice the difference that in the front, remember that Avogadro's number was on top and 1 mole was on the bottom. So this is how you solve pretty much all of these, and get some practice on getting them on the calculator, and good luck.